Hello, everyone, students, teachers, and all those watching from home. Today marks the first TEDx Youth at ACS International event. My name is Kieran.
And I'm Kunya, and we are proud to be your hosts for today's event.
For those of you who may not already know, TEDx is a grassroots initiative created in the spirit of TED's overall mission to research and discover ideas worth spreading. TEDx brings the spirit of TED to local communities around the globe through TEDx events. These events are organized by passionate individuals who seek to uncover new ideas and to share the latest research in their local areas to spark conversations in their communities. We feel especially proud to be able to bring such a unique experience to our school, ACS International, and we hope that you can take away as much from this event as we did planning it.
You will be happy to know that we have a spectacular lineup of speakers from all over Southeast Asia. This event will definitely be one to look forward to.
Our topic for today is Break the Cycle, and our speakers will be discussing all sorts of issues relevant to teens today. The main focus will be escaping harmful cyclical processes. These processes can go from as small as procrastination to large-scale global issues. This event was run by a team of students with the help of Ms. Sen and Mr. Ko.
Without further ado, let's introduce our first speaker. Alisa Natalie is a first-year student of Communication Studies in Universitas Indonesia. She has been doing MUN since last year and enjoys making YouTube videos that share tips and tricks. The main focus of her speech will be on how to maximize your potential through the education sector. Let's welcome her.
Lady Gaga's movie, A Star is Born. But do you think a star is really just born naturally? Because no, I believe a star is made, not born. Hello, I'm Alisa Natalie, a confident believer and opportunist girl from Indonesia. Why I choose these words? Confident believer because I believe that all my dreams that are achieved starts from believing. Believing that no matter how big and how high the dream will definitely be achieved. After dreaming, don't forget to start your action to reach it. And of course, it won't be an instant journey, but it starts with things as simple as affirming yourself. Sounds cliche, right? But I will show you how the power of beliefs and the word of affirmation help me achieve my dreams. Since elementary school, I really like the art of public speaking and hope that one day I'll be able to interview public figures. How I practice, as simple as talking to the mirrors, making an event in my own bathroom, and many other crazy things people might say. But who would have thought when I was in junior high school, I was selected to audition and succeeded in becoming a child reporter and got the chance to interview the President of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Joko Widodo. A 15-year-old girl. Who'd have thought? But I've been dreaming and affirming it for a very long time. And since that, many new doors are open up for me. And I also had the opportunity to be the moderator for a talk show with the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources of Indonesia, Mr. Ignatius Jonan. This experience and passion made me confident and determined to take major in communication science in the future. However, turns out that talents, determination, passion alone are not enough. Hard work and luck factor also play a big part in my life. Entering college level, I struggled to qualify for one of the best public university in Indonesia, Universitas Indonesia. Experiencing rejection as much as 4 times does not make me give up easily on my dreams. And finally, on the fifth try, I was successfully accepted at the university where I am currently studying at. And of course, after experiencing these many rejections, I've become a more ambitious and opportunities person because I know that getting to this point is not an easy journey. As a corona generation, pandemic cannot burden me to be used as an excuse that we cannot do anything. Otherwise, I am 100 times much more active during the pandemic because everything are easier basically. You can just open up your laptop and meet new people from all around the world, attending and winning international event and competition, and even make a virtual event like what we're doing today. So take note that do not forget to find activities that can develop your skill and passion. And how to find passion? Simply by asking these questions. Do I have interest and be happy with these particular activities? What activities resonate the most with my life values? Or what would I do with my life if money weren't an issue? Moreover, you can take a note that skills are cheap, but passions is priceless. You can learn how to be a good designer, you can learn how to be a good singer, but is it your passion? Are you happy to do that? Everyone can learn how to be a good designer, to be a good singer, but finding your passion, eagerness, and ambition to work on something is very, very priceless, and it is something that makes you unique. And after you finding your passion, finally, this passion will lead you to your purpose. For example, in my case, I found MUN Club in my university. And to give you a picture of what is MUN, let me give you a brief explanation. MUN stands for Model United Nations, where basically we take a role as a representative of particular country and give our perspective and solution towards particular issue. These activities give me so much benefit because I learned to do in-depth research and used to know global issues. And not only that, I gained skills such as public speaking, negotiation, drafting, and many other skills that are very useful for my daily basis as a college student. And most importantly, I can finally use my English because, as we know, English is not the mother tongue of Indonesian people. So I feel challenged by participating in this kind of activities, and of course, made a new connection with friends from all around the world and seniors in my university to help me develop both personal growth and skill development. And of course, I joined these activities not to only show off in social media or LinkedIn, but with determination and resilience. I've always have a goals to win in every competition that I've joined. The reason is basically simple, very simple. If you have a desire of winning, you will give the best of yourself and then you will maximize what you can do. And from there, you will gain much more benefit rather than just sit and be a good listener. And yeah, I have proved that in my very first semester of university life, my determination and resilience me accepted to be one of the official representative from my university for international delegation to Asia Pacific and London International Model United Nations Conference. The key is only one. Be brave to go out of your comfort zone and try something new. In my case, it's not only by joining MUN conference. This year, I also tried to be an educational content creator to help my lower classmen and students in Indonesia to prevent them from doing the same mistake I made in terms of education and studies. Moreover, I also share my activities that is based on my passion, such as moderating and being a public speaker, because I believe that you can live your life to the fullest by following your passion and as well as sharing is caring. And of course, the activities that I've joined into are inseparable from the consideration of cost benefit analysis. But what is cost benefit analysis? Let me give you an example. If you join an organization or participate in any events or activities, don't you want to just sacrifice your energy and thoughts without getting anything? And that is why cost benefit analysis is very important, so you also gain something beneficial for yourself, whether it is an experience, the environment, the knowledge, and even new connection and networking, so you not only waste your opportunity cost and time. In conclusion, if you want to enjoy your life but still productive at the same time, start by finding your passion from what activities you like the most. Even as simple as you're watching a movie, start to be more critical, such as why the actors are showing this kind of behavior and characters, or like why am I love this movie so much? And then I guarantee that you will finally find what is your passion about. And after finding your passion, find the economic side of it. Because at the end of the day, we're still a human. We need money to live our life. That is why don't forget to perspective your passion in the future job that you want to have. You cannot only rely on your passion, but you also need your future business outcome. But still remember to also involve your purpose in it. With passion and purpose, I believe that you will become someone who doesn't get floating easily because of the strong fundamental beliefs and foundation. Do what you love, find your passion and purpose, live your life to the fullest, and be a star. Thank you.
Thank you, Alisa, for that speech. Our next speaker is Celine Hosea, a 17-year-old Indonesian college student studying in the University of Melbourne, majoring in biotechnology. She's a writer at medium.com, and she also publishes articles about philosophy at the Aperion blog. Today, she will talk to us about productivity and how we can maximize productivity with minimal effort. Let's welcome her.
Productivity culture sucks. Here's what you can do instead. Do you ever have that dilemma in which, in the middle of the night, you realize you have not crossed off everything in your to-do list and then get horrible thoughts about not being good enough? On the one hand, there's this part of you which acknowledges you're not being as productive as you could be, while the other just goes, why am I trying to be productive in the first place? The latter voice is usually very sublime, and when it surfaces, we usually brush it away by thinking that this is just a meander to the true problem that you're not productive enough. We brush away meaningful realizations or fail to listen to them because we think these are instincts we have to overcome, a voice on behalf of laziness. This is not true. When you're doubting the reason why you do things, this is not being lazy, and you should listen to your instincts. Our society is too obsessed with productivity. Everybody, the majority of self-help advice, focuses on how a person can increase their productivity. But rarely do we ask whether it is necessary in the first place, or why we are trying to be productive. For what purpose? We need to take some time to step back and press pause on this endless cycle of doing things for the sake of doing them. Productivity culture puts heavy emphasis on production, treating individuals not as people with experiences, but as workers. There is not enough emphasis on human experience. What is shown on Instagram are someone's awards, less so their personality. We see constant academic achievements, winning competitions, someone's position at work, joining NGOs, and some even go as far as to post their class notes and themselves working late at night with the 2 a.m. sticker on their stories. Even worse, even the books you read in that year have to be posted on Instagram with a pretty picture of your bookshelf, and don't forget to list each book in the description. It doesn't matter that in between work hours, the person thinks about deep, meaningful questions about the universe, about their loved ones, or just appreciating the sunset over the horizon. All of these experiences form nothing concrete externally. The only thing they leave are mental formations. Yet these experiences are what define us as human beings. They are the line between human and machine. Society should appreciate and put more values in internal worlds, and not only force someone to continually blind themselves to life's wonders in pursuit of production for the sake of production. We exist to feel and to be, not just to do. We should shift our focus not from how to work more efficiently to cram in even more work in that day, but how to work more effectively so that we have plenty of time to do the things that really make us happy. These are 4 things I found through trial and error, which works for me that I would like to share with you. Firstly, constant perfectionism is not always the answer. Learn how to relax and stop being too much of a perfectionist. I used to be very anxious about my writing. I thought if my writing did not produce results that people like, my work is fundamentally meaningless. As a result, I would proofread my work over and over again. I was the writer who tried to perfect the first sentence so much that I could not move on to the next. But after I saw writing not as an attempt to be productive or increase my value to the world, and instead wrote just to enjoy myself, it was much easier for me to write. Instead of being a burden, writing became one of the most enjoyable pastime activities. When you write to alleviate pain and not to please people, the audience that will come to read your work by themselves are more likely to find your work authentic and be helped by them. It is similar to the paradox of the person who tries so hard to get their loved one's attention. Ironically, when the person stops trying is when they get what they were initially aiming for. Secondly, it is important to understand that our personhood is never constant. We have our ideal self, which only looks at the goal and usually forgets the sacrifices required to achieve it, whereas our experiential self is the person who has to go through all the pain to achieve it, which they usually try to avoid doing whenever they spot the opportunity to procrastinate. My point is, you can set things you have to do in order to achieve a final goal. But when doing these things at the moment, shift gears from thinking in your ideal self to satisfying your experiential self. Because your ideal self is a planner and your experiential self is the doer. And your experiential self, most of the times, just wants to have fun. Your experiential self works best at a state of relaxation and comfort. You know those moments in which it is so hard for you to start doing something because the thought of it makes you so stressed, but once you get into it, you find yourself in a trance, and you end up achieving so much more than you initially set out to do. And you probably did all this without even being aware of it at the moment. I've been there too, trust me. Unlike how most productive people describe it as a burst of energy, that is usually very rare. What is more useful to learn is the concept of having to be comfortable and relaxed before starting your work. Set up your space, work in a clean environment, play some relaxing jazz or classical piano with no lyrics as a background music. Whatever works for you. The point is, you have to shift your gears to doing things out of joy, instead of them being a sufferance that you have to get over with. Thirdly, if you really can't work, stop focusing on doing things you're heavily reluctant to at the moment. Instead, do meaningful things that won't make you feel terrible after, that are not those things that you presently avoid. What I mean is, the solution is not to force yourself to sheer will to do that one action you initially planned out to do, nor is it to not do anything meaningful. It is to choose a meaningful action whose function is not necessarily to prove yourself that you're doing something inherently productive, but simply to avoid making you feel terrible and a sense of self-loathing after you do it. For example, Reading a book might not be what you initially set out to do before the energy drop, but it also won't make you feel terrible, unlike doom scrolling through social media. The feelings and actions of people have their seasons and duration. If an action isn't ready, there is no point in forcing the decision. Attention is not a question of will. It has its highs and lows. It is a wave which we must learn how to surf. This is not trying to encourage procrastination, but just acknowledging the reality that we are never the same person every second of the day. That is the first fact. The second fact is that we feel horrible if we end up procrastinating from work and engage in destructive behaviors as a substitute, such as binge watching a show that actually makes you stressed after watching it, overeating, or scrolling through social media. Once we acknowledge these two facts and synthesize them, we arrive at a compromise. After your mood has been regulated, then you can tackle your objectives easier. Focus your energy into desire rather than will. As Schopenhauer said, man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. Lastly, don't hope to win. Just do things for the sake of the action itself. You are doing it to make your experiential self happy. You achieve the goal by not aiming for it. Just enjoy practicing in itself, not because you chase an outcome. For example, the self-help industry provides plenty of suggestions on how to read faster, finish more books in a year, and so on. But where's the joy of reading literature when rushed? A supposedly productive friend of mine constantly remarked on how slow I was at reading, and that made me feel insecure for a moment and pushed me to learn how to read faster. Use a pen to guide your eyesight, don't voice a narrator inside your head, and so forth. But then I realized, with this way of reading, I finished more titles in exchange for losing all the nuance and complexity I got from books in the beginning, when I was still reading like a snail. An author has a particular way of arranging their words, and the words flow a particular way like poetry. They have specific rhythms, and their choice of words themselves are very fascinating to think about. Why use that word instead of a synonym? What different tone does it elicit? All of these are lost when our goal is not to immerse ourselves in the moment, but to finish the book. In conclusion, by focusing our energies on desire rather than will, we can easily identify what truly gives our life meaning. Desire has its ups and downs, and sometimes, contrary to popular belief, there is no point in forcing it. Don't procrastinate through self-destruction, such as doing activities you know you will regret after. Instead, do meaningful activities that aren't necessarily what you have to do in the moment, but feel meaningful to you and you know you won't regret. Only after your mood has been stabilized can you go back to your original task refreshed and inspired to tackle it. By shifting your mindset and behavior to working by understanding our energy levels instead of forcing yourself to stick to a rigid time-based deadline, you are not only able to work more productively, but actually enjoy the process. There is no point in being overly perfectionistic. Act not when you're fully prepared, but in order to learn and enjoy the process. Thank you.
Thanks, Celine, for that great speech. The next speaker is a junior student from our school, Haley, a Year 4 student born in Hong Kong, China, who has been living in Singapore since 2019. Today, she will talk about the importance of reflection in our life. Let's welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Haley, and today I'm going to talk about the importance of reflection. So, I'm going to start my speech with a little story of mine. Back when I was studying in primary school, I was one of those few that were top of the class. I remember whenever the students disobeyed the teachers or disobeyed the school rules, they'd be required to write a piece of reflection. In Chinese, we call it 反思, which means to think oppositely. And I had never understood the meaning of reflection, let alone incorporating it into my own life. I always taken it as something self-deprecating because I was constantly being reminded of the mistakes that I've made. And so at that moment, I was an outsider. I pity those who reflect. And then I got into the secondary school in Hong Kong, and I got to be in touch with this idea. I think some of you guys might know this idea. It's a physics graph about reflection. So I got to know that the reason why we can see the world in clarity is because of the reflection of light on each subject surrounding us. And this idea struck the teenage inquisitiveness in me as I was thinking, what if we could implement this beyond physics? What if we could make it an implementation to oneself? And I instantly thought of an object, a mirror. The reason why you can see yourself clearly in the mirror is because of the light waves that bounces back at us. And I don't know if you guys have ever thought about this question before. What if the world has never had mirrors? What if the world has never had anything that simulates as a mirror? And how can we know what we look like? How do we know who we are? Of course, you can go ask your friends to draw a portrait of you, and you can go ask your friend for their opinion of you, but solely without a mirror, you're losing the sense of self. You become the person who's shaped by other people's voices, but never your own. But with the mirror, you validify their opinions, and you reassure it to yourself. And that is what I called a reflection. And it's also the importance of being reflective. And at that moment, I was a participant in the realm of reflection as I understood the importance of it. Reflection can be manifested through different forms. For example, one day I was reading Virginia Woolf, and this idea struck me, like, what is this that I'm reading? Is it just a book? No, it's actually pages of reflection of Virginia Woolf's reflection with regard to life, love, and the substantiality of one's emotion. And then I started to form this hypothesis in my mind. What if the world is all made out of one's reflection? And then this hypothesis came to mind, that all arts are the form of one's reflection. So here are the information I collected from our IGCSE syllabus. In English literature, we learn about Romeo and Juliet. It's actually Shakespeare's reflection with regard to fate, love, and one's the fragility of life. And then, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte is actually Bronte's reflection with regard to the 18th century's woman oppression. And then we have Tao Yuanming, a Chinese poet. All of his poems are the reflection of his own desire towards a utopian world. And this made me question, no matter life, like war, politics, religion, etc., they are the manifestation of one's reflection. And even the devices that you're using right now. Mark Zuckerberg, who invented Facebook, the initial thought of his was wanting to create a community to connect with his college friend from Harvard. Or we can actually talk about Stephen Hawking's. Stephen Hawking's discovery about that the universe started with a singularity is initiated from his reflection towards time itself. And look how far reflection has taken us. And think about how far being reflective will take us. And all of these inventions, the arts, the devices, the applications, the literature, came from one's reflection. I think reflection shouldn't just be a criteria we need to be assessed to. And it shouldn't be something that we need to possess just at a certain phase of our life in order to get a good grade or fulfill a certain criterion. It should be a lifelong quality that all of us should maintain throughout the journey of our life. Maybe some of you might be familiar with the process of metamorphosis, that the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. The 4 stages of the caterpillar going through are egg, larva, pupa, adult. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think is the most important stage out of these 4 lives? The answer is none of them. It is what is the journey that matters the most. And how do we as human beings metamorphosize mentally? It's not about us being the ravishing butterfly in the end. It's about what we have become before getting there. And this, the transformation, the metamorphosis of our mental, of our one's understanding towards the world and ourselves, can only be done through the power of reflection. So practically speaking, you guys might ask me, how does one reflect? Should we be extremely stoic? Should we be extremely philosophical? No, that's definitely a no. From what I've learned from my primary school's experience, reflect for the most trivial mistakes that you've made. And then you can start by asking yourself, what did I do wrong? How can I improve? Or does this mistake define who I am? Or you can start to build up your skills of being a reflective person. Start to question about the universe, like what Hawking did. Question about who am I? Question about when did time start? How will time end? And slowly with reflection, manifest it. Put it in action. Show the world that you are a person who reflect. Present these things in your invention, in your art, in your literature. And that is what I called the power of reflection and how one can actually implement this to their own life and to benefit the other. In general, no matter how in-depth of the reflection you are making, no matter how shallow it is, you just need to bend your thoughts inward. That is the key, the essence of reflection. So guys, I urge you to look into the mirror of your own mistakes or your own success, to make amends or to be encouraged again, to continue to walk on that road to your future. Just think about it, us, youth, being reflective is such an important thing. How it's not, if we can reflect not just for the grades we've made, not just for the assessment we wanted to improve on, but also for the mistakes that we didn't make amend, also for the people we need to learn from, we will be such a powerful bunch that will never be defined by other people's voices, but by who we are, by our own reflection. Now coming back to the physics graph, the reason why we can see the world around us clearly is because of the light that reflects on the surrounding. And the same thing applies to human beings ourselves. The reason why we can see ourselves clearer is through the power of reflection. So let us rise from our mistakes. Let us grow from our reflection and let us see ourselves clearer through the power of reflection. Thank you very much.
What a great speech, Haley. Raphael Judah, our next speaker, is an Indonesian college student studying political science at Pasadena Community College in California. He's also the executive director of Blueprint Model Association, a global MUN organization dedicated to developing public speaking and critical thinking skills through Model United Nations. He will be speaking to us today about how we can use Kanye West as inspiration to be more creative. Let's welcome him.
is Kanye West. In his own words, he's called himself Shakespeare in the flesh, Socrates but with skin more chocolatey, and even a god. Although many would qualify these comparisons, no one can deny Kanye West's impact on modern culture or his remarkable musical genius. The Chicago-born billionaire rapper, producer, and fashion designer is one of the foremost creative minds of the 21st century, with scores of worshippers and fans across the globe. This includes me. I admit, I love Kanye. In spite of the many stupid and controversial things he's said and continues to say, he embodies 3 principles that have helped me become a happier, more creative person. Today, I will share these 3 principles with all of you in the hopes that they will make you happier and more creative in turn. Number 1, delegate, delegate, delegate. One thing that separates Kanye West from your average self-obsessed narcissist with delusions of grandeur is his sense of self-awareness. Despite calling himself the #1 most impactful artist of our generation, the man is acutely sensitive to and honest about his personal limitations. Instead of taking on the entirety of his projects alone, Kanye compensates for his weaknesses and constraints by making his projects a group effort and delegating certain aspects of the creative process to other talented artists and creators. This has allowed him to transcend his limitations and create things that are more than a single person could ever conceive, including his 10 blockbuster studio albums, his billion-dollar apparel line Yeezy, and ventures into architecture, philanthropy, and politics. Delegate, delegate, delegate. By building a collaborative structure of competent and driven individuals, you can accomplish so much more than you could alone. Identify the strengths and weaknesses of every member on your team, then delegate the right tasks to the right people, keeping in mind their individual skills, experiences, and perspectives. In Kanye's own words, the most genius thing about the way I create is to create with other geniuses. Number 2, take yourself seriously. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Kanye West was known as a great producer, but an unpromising rapper. Many prominent rappers and other figures in the music industry opposed his repeated attempts to get signed onto a label. They saw his ambitious, braggadocious persona and liberal middle-class background as an incompatible match with the prevalent macho, street-level image of the era's gangster rap. Despite this opposition, however, Kanye would prove his haters wrong with his smash hit first album, The College Dropout, in 2004, and would continue to do so in the years following. From the start, Kanye always took himself and his ideas seriously. He paid attention to his intuitions and convictions, following them with total confidence, regardless of what the Twitterverse, his contemporaries, or even the President of the United States might have thought of his actions. During the 2009 MTV Video Music Awards, he infamously interrupted Taylor Swift's acceptance speech to object to the award and proclaim, "I'm gonna let you finish, but Beyoncé had one of the best videos of all time," referring to her then newly released music video for Single Ladies, Put the Ring on It. It was this brazen mindset and devotion to personal ideals that enabled him to experiment and create so broadly and radically in his music, from the jazz-influenced Late Registration to the lush, symphonic My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and the bold, disruptive Yeezus, on which he defiantly proclaims, "I am a god." Take yourself and your ideas seriously. Consider your intuitions and convictions a source of native inner genius. Many people go through life feeling unsatisfied and dissociated from themselves because they're living the lives that other people expect them to live. They think small and act small because they believe they have nothing new or special to contribute to the world around them. Don't be another one of those people. Think like Kanye. As Kanye says, you've got to be really dialed into exactly who you are to the 100th power, or you're just everybody else. Number 3, do the things you love, period. Many of us grow up in an environment that encourages us to pursue careers that are realistic. This mindset, hammered into us from a young age and perpetuated by society and culture, bleeds into our choice of university, internships, projects, friends, and even hobbies. Our life decisions are informed by pragmatism, not passion. The very notion of simply doing what we love plays a minuscule part in our decision-making processes. However, with this mindset as our primary concern, how can we ever expect to achieve greatness in our chosen fields, to become truly exceptional and world-class if we don't have the drive to commit ourselves fully to what we do? Kanye's advice is simple. Do things you love, and if you don't absolutely love something, stop doing it as soon as you can. Kanye's mindset of passion over pragmatism is evident throughout his life and work. He dropped out of Chicago State University at the age of 20 after realizing that classes interfered with the quality of his musical output. He tirelessly devoted himself to perfecting his craft in musical production, songwriting, and design, despite admitting he isn't naturally gifted at anything except learning. He immersed himself in the world of fashion, despite the opposition and disbelief of many within the fashion industry. By indulging in his natural impulses and investing in himself, rather than molding himself according to the general expectations of society, Kanye has become that rare thing in today's world, a true individual. Do the things you love, period. The bottom line: while there are many reasons to criticize or dislike Kanye West, there are very few reasons why his approach towards creativity and life in general should be dismissed. Who doesn't want to believe in themselves a little more, or to be a part of something greater than themselves? Who doesn't want to do the things that make them happy to be alive? Truthfully, who doesn't want the Kanye level of confidence it takes to say things like, "My greatest pain in life is that I will never be able to see myself perform live," and believe it? As this talk demonstrates, I love Kanye. He isn't perfect. A lot of the time, I think he's absurd, egotistical, and excessive. In spite of this, I find that the more I come to love Kanye, the more I come to love myself. In Kanye's own words, if you're a Kanye West fan, you're not a fan of me, you're a fan of yourself. You will believe in yourself. I'm just the espresso. Thank you.
That was an excellent speech. Our next speaker, Malcolm, he is a Singaporean currently in Polytechnic and a motivational speaker. His speech is on the importance of communication in an efficient and effective way. So let's hear Malcolm's talk on communication skills. Please welcome him.
Hi everyone, my name is Malcolm. I'm a competitive swimming coach, and today I will be sharing about communication. Now, in a world where we have Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, we're the most connected that we've ever been. However, we have somehow lost the ability to effectively communicate with each other offline. It seems harder to have face-to-face conversations with people and connect on a very deep and personal level these days. The good news is communication is not a special gift that is reserved for certain types of people in this world. In fact, every single person in this room is capable of becoming an effective communicator. Before we begin, I thought we first must understand what communication is and be on the same page. So effective communication is not about spitting words out of your mouths. It is not about using the fanciest words, nor is it about knowing exactly what to say all the time. Communication, as the dictionary puts it, is the successful conveying or sharing of ideas and feelings. Now, what this means is that communication is not so much about talking, but the ability to impart something into someone else. It's not so much about what you say, but what the other person takes away. Now, take this for an example. If you went out on a date and you wore an old t-shirt that had a stain that was caused by the dinner you had the night before, what you might have effectively communicated to the other person is that 1, you don't do your laundry, 2, you are lazy, 3, you don't really care, right? And all this was said without you having to say a single word. Now, studies also tell us that 70 to 93% of all communication is non-verbal. So what that means is that whatever you're saying, really only is a small percentage of the larger picture. So now that we know and understand what communication is, we can go on to how to effectively do it. Now I'll be sharing with you 5 tips that has helped me communicate better in my professional and personal life. And the first one is, it's not about you. It does not matter if you know the answer to every question in the universe. A conversation is not a place for you to boast to the world how great and how smart you are. My mentor once told me that people don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. People love to talk about themselves. So let them talk. Let them tell you their stories. Go into every conversation with a genuine interest in the other person. When you let someone talk about themselves, they feel good, and thus they feel good talking to you. So when someone shares about how amazing it feels to get an A for a test, don't start talking about all the times you got an A and how amazing that felt, because then you would be comparing your experience with theirs, and it's never the same, right? Second one is always assume you have something to learn. When you go into a conversation with things made up in your head, you close the door to new and interesting discoveries. I'll share with you a story that happened to me. There was one afternoon I decided to go for a hike, and I told myself that the very next person that I came into contact with, I would ask him or her what their life was like. So I saw an elderly man about 50 meters away from me, and I walked up to him and I said, "Sir, I know this is strange and I'm a complete stranger, but what was the highlight of your life?" And I was expecting him to share with me something common like his family, maybe his grandchildren, or his first car. Turns out this man used to be a pilot for the Air Force, and he currently owns an ostrich farm in Malaysia. Now, no amount of experience will allow you to know if somebody owns an ostrich farm or not. So don't ever go into a conversation thinking that you know the other person, because then you would not ask and you would never know, right? You would never find out these little interesting things about other people. The third one is listen to understand and not to reply. It's very easy to want to reply something as soon as we hear it. Some of us, including myself, we are guilty of giving a reply before the other person even finishes their sentences, right? Because we've already made up our minds and we predict what the other person is trying to say, right? So be quick to listen and slow to respond. People want to be heard and understood, right? They don't necessarily need your reply as much as they need someone who truly understands what they mean. Now, take some time to process what the other person is trying to communicate to you. Now, remember, it's not so much about what they say, but what they aren't saying. Take notice of their tone, their body language, the other nonverbals. What are they trying to say to you? And the fourth thing is ask specific questions. Most of the time we tend to ask people, how was your day? And the default answer will be, it was fine, it was good. And the conversation usually ends over there, right? So what you could do, instead of asking people, how was your day, you could ask more specific questions like, what was something positive that happened today, or what was something funny that happened today? And this allows them to have more specific stories to share with you. And the last point I have for you today is embrace bad conversations. And I'll end off with this last point. Embrace bad conversations. Because at some point, you are going to make a mistake. And you are going to have awkward moments from time to time. You do not just get a good conversation. It takes time and it takes practice. But the faster you get over that fact, the faster you'll be able to have deep and meaningful conversations. You rather be the person who tries, fumbles, and makes the mistakes than the person who was never seen, heard, or remembered. Thank you.
Thanks for that informative speech, Malcolm. Next, we have our speaker, Ayush, who's a Year 6 student at ACS International. For many years, Ayush has been a noteworthy leader in the school. He frequently takes part in Model United Nations conferences with the school to challenge himself. Combining his own experiences, Ayush will talk about breaking the cycle of life today. Let's give the stage to him.
Good evening, everyone. It brings me joy immense to be on stage with all of you here today. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. My gratitude to the team who have been working tirelessly to make this event a wonderful and triumphant success. Mom, Dad, thank you for always believing in me. I love you guys, and I made it. Let me start off by asking you guys a question. What are you doing on the 27th of May in the year 2039? Will you be able to tell me what are your exact plans on that day? I'm guessing not. But why is that? Many people say life is short, but I respectfully disagree. Life is really long, guys. A 100-meter sprinter thinks about his race and visualizes his every step before that gun goes off. They visualize how they start. They're going to think about how they're going to sprint away, how are they going to get the maximum speed that they can get, and how they're going to end their race with perfection and poise. All for a race that lasts for a matter of 10 seconds. On the contrary, you have a chess master who takes his time. He adapts his game for a game that can last above 10 hours long. If life was short, guys, you would have planned it all out by now. Like the sprinter, if I told you you have 1 week left to live on Earth, you would plan it down right to the very last second. And you wouldn't give a damn about anything that's going around in the world. Because you would have no worries, you wouldn't have no regrets. You would just think about spending this last week as best you can. But yet we don't do that now. And why is that? It's because we have time to do that later. We have time on our hands. To put this into perspective, if you live to the global average life expectancy, you would live around 73 years on Earth. You would spend about 700,000 hours on Earth. You would spend about 40 million minutes on Earth. And your heart would beat more than 2.5 billion times in those 73 years. So anything could happen in a heartbeat. You could change your life in a heartbeat. And the way I see it, guys, you have more than 2 billion opportunities to change your life drastically. And it shouldn't be so hard to seize one of these opportunities, right? For a chess master, losing a pawn in a game of chess seems like a minuscule thing in the grand scheme of things. But for a sprinter, planting one step wrongly could cost them the entire race. And what I'm trying to say with this analogy is that when you look at things from a bigger perspective, when you start to slow down and look at life one moment at a time, that's when you start to see life from a very different angle. But that's easier said than done. See, when you think about life as the long game, you start to take things for granted. You start to spend time on things that don't make sense. And I'm not talking about taking some breaks to watch Netflix or play video games, because we all need that avenue of relief. I'm talking about two things that still inhibit us from being who we can truly be. The first being tenacity, and the second being the congruence of the mind and the heart. Let's talk about these setbacks in life. You are going to hit a wall. All of us are going to hit a wall at some point of our life. Things are going to be going real good, and we're going to hit a wall. And life is just playing with us. It taunts us, and it hurts some of us to hit that wall. But in these painful and trying times, we don't have an obstacle to deal with. We have a choice to make. We have a choice to make. Some people choose to back down. They give up. They slow down because they think there's no point to this anymore. But then you have that small handful of people who turn on the power and push through everything. Take it from someone who has hit multiple walls in his life, particularly the things that I've gone through in the last few months of my life. I wouldn't wish them even on the worst of my enemies. I have lost friends. I have lost family. I've fought with people over trivial matters. I spent time in isolation, literally physically and also more so mentally. And here's the thing, after going through all that anguish, I have understood that everything that I am going through is preparing me for what I have asked for. See, when I grow up, I want to be an investment banker. I've got the typical dream. I want to have the 2 kids. I want to have the nice beach house. I want to have a nice family, a nice Mercedes parked out in the driveway. But I've understood that that is not going to come easy. See, life is a process full of ups and downs, a process that is necessary for us to go through. And when I'm on the other side of that process, when I'm on the other side of that finish line, where I've achieved everything that I've wanted to in life, I'm going to look back. I'm going to be okay with the process that I've gone through. Every single time you hit a roadblock, push through it. Most of us are not successful because every single time things are not going our way, we give up, we quit, we let go. And people can feel our weakness. People can sense when we've given up. People can fear us because people can sense your fear. Now, I grew up as an only child with the nurturing love from very progressive and forward-thinking parents. They always taught me what was right, what was wrong. They gave me a good education. And even though I had all this education, all this nurturing around me, it was only through my mistakes that I learned about the values and beliefs that my parents always used to tell me about. It was only after I made these mistakes in the many facets of life that I was able to align myself to a set of values and beliefs that I believed in. This journey that I had endured as a young adolescent, this trial of process and error, is what has led me to be who I am today, with the beliefs and values that I hold with conviction. Some of us learn how to align our thoughts and feelings at a very young age. But for a handful of us, it comes with time. The mind and the heart are both very strong facets of our existence. They play incomprehensible roles in our functioning. They are so strong that they can alter, control, and influence our thoughts and emotions before we even realize it. And when you're able to master your mind and you're able to sync it up to your heart, there is nothing that can stop you on planet Earth. See, I like to call this the congruence of the soul. When you're able to align your feelings and your thoughts to a process of rationale provided by your mind. You're able to exact a level of self-control and intelligence that will be unmatched by anyone around you. And when you learn to master your emotions, then and only then are you free. Your mind can be the biggest prison that we have to endure, but it can also be your sanctuary if you make it your friend. As I leave you today, I'm going to take you back to the 2 billion chances that you have. If you get lucky, one moment is all it's going to take to change your life around. But some of us need more than one moment. We take a few moments. But it's not the results that I want you to focus on. It's the journey. See, a lot of us are going to go through this journey. Think about Usain Bolt, for example. He has spent less than 2 minutes running in Olympic finals in his entire career. Yet he's famous all over the world. Everyone knows who Usain Bolt is. And everyone knows that he's made millions for running in this 2 minutes. But it's not the 2 minutes of running that I want to focus on. It's the 20 years of hard work and penance leading up to those final 2 minutes of his career that I want you to focus on. I am Ayush Deb. And to be honest, I'm a nobody right now. I'm just a kid trying to navigate through a life full of intricacies. And what I've shared with you today is how I'm trying to fix my life one step at a time. And at the end of the day, goals without plans are just wishes and dreams. So this is my plan, and I hope you have a plan for yourself. Be the hardest working person in the room. Learn to live with a congruent mind and soul. Trust this process of life. Trust this beautiful journey of life. Trust this path of progression that you are on. And most importantly, take life one moment at a time. Thank you.
What an inspirational speech, Ayush. The next speaker is a Year 6 student of ACS International, Gurney Singh. Since he's been doing Model United Nations for 5 years, Gurney has a global view on many different things. And today, he will talk to us about questioning ourselves. Let's welcome him.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gurney Singh, and today I'm here to talk to you about questioning yourself. I want to share with you how you can use a principle of questioning yourself to be a better version of yourself. Not a finished product, a better version. So, I want to start this talk today by sharing a story. A story of how a 10-year-old boy used this principle to improve himself. So, as many stories start, once upon a time, there was a little boy, 10-ish. He had a very comfortable, blessed, and advantageous life. Things just came easy to this guy. I mean, he had excellent grades by doing the bare minimum, some good friends, a family that adored him. All this ultimately ends up and contributes to forming a very arrogant and overconfident little child. But as the years go by, this does not last. You see, the tests become harder, so you need to do more work. Friends stop appreciating a cocky attitude. And even family gets a little annoyed at his rude behavior. But don't worry, my friends, even this does not persist. You see, that little 10-year-old boy was me. And I managed to overcome this, obviously from some help from my brother. As my arrogance grew, my elder brother took notice, and he started pointing out these things that I would do that reflected this arrogance. But you see, when you are arrogant, you have hubris. You are prideful. So when people that care for you tell you that you're doing something wrong, what you tend to do is you just wave it off. You're too prideful to accept that you may be wrong. So luckily for me, my brother was intelligent enough to shift up his approach. He stopped telling me what was wrong and started asking me whether I thought what I did was right. He questioned me. He poked holes in my thinking. And what this did was it made me think to myself that I cannot justify my actions to myself. So obviously there is a problem. And the first step to solving any problem is to recognize and accept there is one. And that's why I'm here talking to you about questioning yourself today. You see, questioning yourself can help you identify a problem within you. And in doing so, it can help you improve yourself. All right, so what exactly does this questioning yourself mean that I'm talking about? Questioning yourself, quite simply means, has its literal meaning. Ask yourself questions. Ask yourself questions that will help you better understand yourself. For example, let me put this into some context. Many of us right now are at a juncture in life, the juncture of graduation. At this stage, some of us start thinking, all right, what am I going to do for college? What am I going to do what courses am I going to do? What's going to influence my career? At this stage, we start asking ourselves questions. We start asking questions like, why am I going to college? Why am I doing this course? Am I even passionate about this course? Is college even worth it anymore? These questions that we ask of ourselves help us better understand ourselves, understand the motivations behind our actions, and understand the implications of our actions. This is important because when you better understand yourself, you can make a more informed decision. As such, this principle of questioning yourself can help you be better than what you are today, be more than what you are today. Now, while I do admit my brother had guided me to start questioning myself, this thinking process I had only recently refined. As of late, I have had this existential crisis, if you will, a crisis of existence where we end up questioning, what is this purpose of human life? Why are we here? And this crisis led me down a rabbit hole of research articles, testimonials, and religious philosophies. Ultimately, I arrived at a podcast about René Descartes. So René Descartes is the philosopher who came up with the theory of existence of I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore my existence is proof. When he came up with this theory, he realized something. He knew that other intellectuals, other philosophers would come and put this into question. He knew that they would poke holes in his arguments, pull his arguments together, pull them apart, and put them together again to disprove him. So you know what he did? He just went ahead and did it himself. And in doing so, he had ultimately developed a more credible argument because he had a more fleshed out argument, a more clearly thought out argument. Now, Descartes called this his process of self-doubt. And it is one of the reasons he is one of the most renowned philosophers in our world. Therefore, the basis of this talk, the basis of the idea of questioning yourself, actually comes from Descartes. He called it a process of self-doubt. And I think that just as he used it to flesh out his arguments, to make his arguments more credible, you can use it to flesh out yourself as a person. Moreover, I think that this principle even has applications in wider spectrums of our society. For example, the political spectrum. We can use this to better understand political thinking, to better understand why we support certain policies and why we stand against them. See, recently I've noticed this phenomenon, and perhaps you have too. If you just go to any comment section on a page, in a politically polarizing post, you'll see that there are two people who have completely opposite views. It seems as though they're living in completely different realities. Now, I hypothesize, and I have substantiated my hypothesis with some research, that this is a cause of the increasing influence of social media. You see, as social media has more influence in our lives, it has led the population to be more confident in what they think is right. Because social media companies tend to show us exactly what we find is in accordance with our political beliefs. And so what this does is it creates a feedback loop that encourages a confirmation bias in the population. This is a dangerous cycle because it leads people to, as I said, feel like they're living in different realities, but it can also encourage people to take up extremist actions, which can be very dangerous for society. Now, I think this principle of questioning yourself can be used again here in this problem to resolve this problem. If you question your beliefs, question why you support certain things, question whether the reasoning of why you're supporting these things is right, then you are likely to have a much more balanced view, which should ultimately help, as I said, make you a more fleshed out person. Finally, before I walk off this stage, and before I leave you all with this information, this powerful tool of self-improvement, I want to warn you. You see, if you question yourself too much, it can occupy the entirety of your thoughts. And that can be crippling. It can cause huge issues with lack of confidence, and that can be almost as bad, if not worse, than being arrogant and prideful. And I'm not here to cripple you. I'm here to help you unleash yourself. And so, with that in mind, I want to say thank you. And I want you all to remember one thing to take away from this entire talk, and that is to question yourself. Question yourself because you are not perfect. Question yourself to be better than what you are today. Question yourself to be more than who you are today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that great presentation, Gurney Hall. Finally, our last speaker is another Year 6 student from our school, Yuna Sun, who goes by Iris. Now, Iris will talk about how to break the cycle of our lives. She will combine her own experience to teach us some tricks to break the cycle. Let's welcome her with warm applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Yuna Son from ACS International Singapore. It is a great honor to stand here in front of you and share my point of view about the cycle of hatred and how we can break this cycle. Beginning of 2020, I was quite terrified to see this kind of news coming every day. Most of Chinese and Asians all across the world are becoming the victims of serious racism and victims of serious hate crimes just because they are from China or Asia. I realized that people started to lose reasoning power and express their biased perspectives in violent ways, which in terms hurting each other. Facing global crisis, when it is the time that everyone should come together and help each other, I found the greatest number of cases of hate crimes and racism all over the world, and I felt that love of mankind and humanitarianism were nowhere. And it is not only racism that I would like to talk today. Racism, xenophobia, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, all the different names of different hate crimes against certain groups. Thousands of people all across the world are actually experiencing serious level of discrimination or wrong prejudices just because they are categorized into certain groups. There are so many cases, so many that I cannot even count all of them here. Different kinds of phobia or hatred are happening every day and everywhere in this world. This is not what I have dreamed of, and this is not the world where everyone has wished to live in. By definition, hatred is an extremely strong feeling of dislike. When this hatred becomes a problem is when the group of people started to share the same hostility or same thoughts against certain groups of people. Now let's see the cycle of hatred and pyramid of hatred shown here. At the very bottom level, there is biased attitudes. This includes all kinds of biased words or phrases that we use in everyday life and how we talk against certain groups of people. And this even includes negatively accepting wrong information and negative information. To be honest, I don't think this level of biased attitude is not an extraordinary or exceptional thing. It is rather common. We easily stereotype other people, whether in positive or negative ways, and once we have an unfair prejudices against other people. However, when we start to accept the lower level of hatred in this pyramid, it is becoming easier and easier for the higher level of hatred to be accepted in this society. And that's the case of bias-motivated violence and even genocide, which includes serious hate crime, for example, murder or rape or killing thousands of people as an example of genocide. These are all parts of vicious cycle of worsening hatred and deepening conflicts and tensions between different social groups. What's worse, hatred against certain groups from group A to group B usually generates another kind of hatred in opposite direction from group A to group B. This again contributes and worsens this vicious cycle of hatred, intensifying tensions against social groups. And I was genuinely curious and wanted to know why this kind of sexisms and hate crimes are still perpetuating in this 21st century. To me, it seemed like we're just repeating the same mistakes that other human beings in the past or all have done. And these are the causes of hatred that I found out. First one is the fear towards unfamiliar groups of people. Fear towards unfamiliar groups of people makes them conservative and exclusive. This tendency is even intensified when people are psychologically or mentally unstable, which is the case for most of the youth in this world today. When people are mentally unstable and don't have mental capacity to care for others and reflect back on their attitude, it is easier for them to justify their actions and think that the hate crimes that they are doing right now is acceptable, and those who are the victims of crimes deserve those attitudes and behaviors. Let me share my experience. I was appointed as an editor-in-chief of Thymon Singapore and Hague, which is the greatest modern United Nations conference in the world. While doing research on anti-feminism and sexism in Korea, as well as racism in America to publish an article, I realized that most of racists and sexists had a serious level of anxiety and uneasiness due to recession and low level of economic status. They believe that migrants and women are taking away their job opportunities and unfairly enjoying the welfare system that they and their parents have achieved in their society. The reason why they cannot agree on this simple statement, everyone should be treated equally, is because they are seeing underprivileged people as their rivals who are unfairly taking away their rights and advantages. If they feel they are superior to those people in any of this, race, gender, age, income level, or fiscal power, they are not ashamed of committing serious hate crime or express their hatred against these people. Secondly, we might not realize how dangerous our hatred can be as we haven't experienced serious level of it. In other words, due to ignorance. They don't know how sharp or how hurtful their word can be if it gets to harm other people. In fact, I've heard some words from my friends. Why are you being so sensitive, or why are you being so boring? Whenever I question their wordings or I pointed out that isn't your word isn't it an example of hate crimes, or aren't you being too much to hate someone else? Then they just said it's a joke and this just the normal slangs that we use in life. However, I don't think that it can be a joke in any methods. Many slangs or swear words that we use in real life, in most cases, are expressions of hate words and hatred towards certain groups. The real problem is that, however, in most cases, those people who normally use these words are not aware of the fact that they are hurting someone unfairly and quite seriously. The last reason would be having double standard and being selfish without empathy. Well, I'm quite embarrassed to speak this out, but I was shocked after experiencing certain event. I'm a Korean, and in South Korea, racism is also a hot issue, and most Koreans feel resentment and deep anger whenever they feel or they hear the news that Koreans in other countries are being victims of racism. However, surprisingly, quite a number of them express hostility towards Chinese and Yemen refugees entering Korea. This is the example of double standard where principles apply differently to groups. Because they don't see those two groups equally, they tend to be more generous to the group that they belong to. This can be partially due to lack of empathy and again, no spare capacity to care for the others. Then, what can we do? What can each of us do to contribute to the better world? The answer is really simple. Do not commit any kind of hatred or phobia and speak out when you witness any unrightful scene. I doubt if there is at least one person here who hasn't done any kind of hatred to others. Speaking this here at this podium, I myself might have once had unfair prejudices against other people when I couldn't notice it. It's all about to what extent are we aware of different forms of hatred, and how much are we willing to change. Be more aware of your everyday thoughts and actions. Be more considerate to change yourself. It sounds so simple and typical, but it really is the only and fundamental way and the most powerful solution, I think. How society changes depends on how individuals change. In other words, any kind of social change starts from individuals' change happening inside of the society. Also, remember the pyramid before. What you think is just a joke or nothing special can be a serious act of hatred and discriminations against certain groups of people, which should be corrected. Also, it is important to admit and understand the difference between different groups of people. Every human being is different, and no single human being in the world has the same thoughts as you. What you think is right would not be the exact case for someone else who has lived completely different life. And we cannot determine who is right or wrong, they are just different type of people. Lastly, do not look on the situation as a spectator. Speak out loud when you witness any unfair scene. I don't think human is evil in nature. However, the reason why still evil perpetuates is because majority of people are not courageous enough to speak out to change the world. Being right by ourselves might not be enough to make the society better. Rather, we must encourage others and spread the ideas. What's more, I think this is the right place and time for us, the youth, to use our ability of using technologies and social media to spread the ideas further. It is the benefit that our generation possess. We can make a maximum use of social media and highly developed technology to reach out to more people all around the world. That is how Black Lives Matter and Me Too movement took place. I believe that the world is getting better, even if it doesn't seem like. Only 100 years ago, most of women on this land were not given with the suffrage. At least now we have many social organizations and international communications such as United Nations and many other NGOs to ensure human rights. At the same time, thousands of people all around the world are trying to ensure basic human rights of people and who are less privileged than others. What changes the world is the time and consistent efforts of individuals who did not give up. Likewise, I believe that collective efforts of us and collective efforts of individuals is the most certain ways and maybe the only way to abolish all kinds of wrong prejudices and hatred against others. Before ending up, I would like to point out one last thing. The most basic and fundamental statement, do treat others as you want to be treated, the golden rule, and put yourself in others' shoes. I would like to end up with 44th US President Barack Obama's famous quote, "Learning to stand in somebody else's shoes, to see through their eyes, that's how peace begins." And it's up to you to make the change. Thank you.
That was the last speech for today. We would like to thank all the speakers for making this a great event.
We would also like to thank everyone for watching this event at home. We want to thank the entire organizing team of this event, and therefore we would like to invite them to the stage now.
I will call the names in team of two. Let's welcome Yun Zhihou and Jia Qiyang first. And then welcome Yu Jia Wang and Annabella Tiffany, a princessa.
That's all for today.
Thanks for watching and have a nice day.